It's the next level.
Hey, my name is Ross Marquand, and I play Red Skull. You are listening to Panels to Pixels podcast. Check it out.
Phase 2 is in place and awaits your command. Any sign of Custer?
Not yet. Eager for your revenge, Klaus? You wanted to cut
to carve a vagina into Custer's head.
Vagina?
That's right. Delightful piece of sadistic irony. And my reward as well. My looks. My beauty fully restored.
Right.
It's just that physical attractiveness has always been sort of a calling card for me.
And you'll have it, God willing.
Panels to Pixels Preacher Season 4, Episode 6. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm Mark.
And I'm Steve.
And Steve, this week we're talking about what is called the Lost Apostle?
Yeah, so I think we talked about this in the first episode when we first heard this mentioned. This Lost Apostle monument in Australia is totally made up. It's completely made up by the show or the comic book. I don't know if it's in the comic book or not, but it's totally made up. It's not a real place. It's not a real thing. But before we get into the synopsis or the brief synopsis of what's going on in episode 6, The Lost Apostle, I want to back up for a second and at least give the way I'm understanding this whole Humperdoo and Jesus thing. Okay, so in season 2, episode 10, Dirty Little Secret, Hairstar says that Humperdoo is the 25th great grandson of Jesus. Mm-hmm. So I think it must just be for expedience sake that they keep saying he's Jesus' son. And that God keeps calling him Jesus' son, when actually it would technically be his, like, great, whatever.
A million grandsons later.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's just, but it did confuse me. So I hope if it confused everybody else to understand that I don't know why, I don't know where, why. I guess it's just this moment in time is when the apocalypse is going to be, and so Humperdoo happens to be the one who's alive at this moment. So the way I understand it, the way it looks to me, is that Jesus is immortal. Because he's God's son, and all of his children though are not immortal, or his progeny is not immortal. So Humperdoo, and they all just happen, or at least Humperdoo happens to resemble him.
Yeah, he's like the ultimate descendant in God's mind, I guess.
Yeah, and maybe that's why God has such an affinity for him, because he resembles Jesus. And I think it was in this episode or the last episode when they talked about Humperdoo being that pure spirit, that innocent and stuff. Maybe that's why he's, to be the Messiah. But the other thing is, I can't believe how we both forgot the Grail, that this whole
exactly
company was called the Grail, that we found out way back in season 2 when they started searching for God. That's when we encountered the Grail for the first time. So, okay, now to the Lost Apostle. Reminder, this is a spoiler-full podcast, so if you haven't watched the Lost Apostle yet, go back and watch it, and then come back to us. But in this episode, we see that God is still playing with his diorama. He calls Hairstar and he tells him to initiate phase 2, whatever that means. And we find out by the end of the episode what the initiation of phase 2 means. As we see Hitler and Jesus, they're continuing to negotiate over their apocalypse binders. Tulip and Cassidy arrive in Australia to find out that Jesse has been murdered by Eugene. But in fact, he hasn't been murdered by Eugene. He's actually being tortured by the Saint. And then a little while later, Tulip finds God's travel trailer and a clue to where Jesse went. So she and Cassidy rescue Jesse in a very unique way, which is kind of cool. Yeah. But at the end of the episode, we catch up to where we started this whole season out with Jesse landing thud on the ground, and all we see is his open eye as he's in the dirt there. So who knows what's going to happen, but there's a lot of stuff besides what I just said that happens in this episode that I'm sure we'll get to in our top 5.
Oh, definitely.
Let me go!
You want to start or shall I?
Why don't you go ahead and start, because I think we have a very similar top 5. I kind of moved mine around a little bit when I read yours, so go ahead and
Mine's
start.
all over the place, so keep in mind.
Yeah.
I'm different like this every once in a while, so bear with me, everybody. My number 5 would be The Walk with Jesse and the Saint of Killers. Wow, that was amazing. The Saint wants to kill God with Jesse. I didn't really get that plan out of the Saint of Killers from the get-go. I knew he was out there to get... my first impression, or throughout this whole time, was that he was looking to get Jesse to kill Jesse. But, you know, within that time, he tortures Jesse at first. But it's very interesting to see the two together and how they're able to talk to one another. It's really weird.
Yeah, it's not really clear, and even within the framework of the episode itself, there's a point there where Jesse says to him, when he threatens to kill Jesse, and my number 5 is what happens when he threatens to kill Jesse, and Jesse basically looks at him and goes, well, if you were going to kill me, you would have killed me by now, so obviously you need me for something. You need me to help you find God, or you want me to use the voice on God, or something. You know, it's a weird, it really is within it. Yeah, I'm with you. It's a little strange. Why does he think, because he did start out saying he wanted to get revenge on Jesse Custer. Yeah. And, you know, maybe the torture, maybe that was enough of a revenge, and now he's kind of cleared his palate, and now he wants to go kill God. But my number 5 was the Saint. He goes and he kills that whole family, basically to keep Jesse stay with him, to convince Jesse to go with him. And I love Jesse trying to use the word on him, and when it doesn't work, he says, just checking. And then, and then Jesse can't fire the Saint's guns either, and even if he tries to hit him with it, the Saint just kind of looks at him. And so it was a really great scene. But I'm with you, it's a little confusing. Why does the Saint need Jesse unless he can't find God on his own? That's the only thing I could think of, is that he was basically using Jesse to find God.
Yeah, Jesse is basically his vessel to find God, to do what he wanted to, because apparently, the Saint of Killers has some sort of vice with God himself, and he was like, I'm just going to take him out, but I'm going to use this guy to get him,
Well, sure. Yeah, absolutely. So that was my number 5, similar to yours. What's your number 4?
My number 4 would be Tulip and Cassidy with the whole 60s style music, representing themselves as pretty much investigators in Australia, where they have Eugene detained trying to find Jesse. I just love the whole banter between, them, like it was like some sort of cop show back in the 70s and the 60s, with Tulip and Cass. Plus the interrogation of Eugene by Tulip. She knew that Jesse was alive, but she just needed to get that information out of Eugene.
Yeah, that's really great. And this actually was my number 4 as well, was just the whole Tulip and Cassidy arriving in Australia, and they get to the counter, and Cassidy flips out his wallet, and all there is like a piece of paper in there. I didn't read it to see. It almost looked like a Doctor Who kind of thing. Like maybe he thought he had written like police on that piece of paper,
or Kilgrave,
that, or whatever. Yeah, he flashes that piece of paper, and then he puts it away, and she throws her gun down, or puts her gun down on the table. We're the Americans, and I absolutely love. Gosh, and the actor's name is escaping me now, that plays Cassidy. I absolutely love his American accent. It's got a very almost Bostonish, or I don't know. You can help me out. Maybe kind of a New Jersey kind of.
No, it was
to
more
or
Boston than anything.
More Boston.
Yeah.
Okay. And I just love that way they bust into the station, and they're like, we want to talk to the commissioner, and they're like, no, you got to fill out all these forms, and she's like, no, we're going to talk to them. It's that whole American swagger and that arrogance that they have and they keep it up basically through the whole episode. Every time they're encountering other police officers or other Australian police officers, and they're on the radio, they're calling out. The station is calling to the police officer at the house where the family's been killed, saying, no, you wait for the Americans to arrive. Don't go in there. We cut to the guy. He didn't wait, and he comes out throwing up. And it just, the whole thing, this whole road trip aspect of the episode was great. And I'm totally with you. That whole 70s style, looking like Starsky and Hutch kind of thing was great. I mean, I grew up. I was born in 1970, so I watched Starsky and Hutch.
Did.
I was yeah, and that's exactly what this was. So I absolutely
it was that kind of jazzy kind of music that they use just to introduce something. It's like
exactly.
If you remember X-Men of Days of Future Past and things of that nature, they always put that music in there, and it always gets me. Ocean's 11 is the perfect. All the Ocean series movies always had that music, and I have all those soundtracks.
And I totally agree with you. That whole idea that as she's talking to Eugene and through her interrogation, we even find out and I went back as I watched it the third time this week. They don't have Jesse's body. They just believe he's dead because Eugene said he killed him, and even to the point where the cop says to Cassidy that when he hears Tulip say that Jesse is alive, he says something to Cassidy to the effect of, well, I suspect we're going to see your friend come out in this guy's stool. Like he ate him. You think he ate him? Really? Where did that? I don't even know where that came from. Like he can't even, like his mouth doesn't even open enough to eat regular food. He's going to eat a person. Yeah. It just, but that's obviously the first indication that we have. And the episode doesn't make us wait very long to see that Jesse is alive as they cut to the Saint torturing him. So.
Yeah. And that would bring me to my number 3.
Yes, sir.
My number 3 would be the beginning of the episode of the Abraham scene with God watching it pretty much on TV. But in reflection, is God testing himself or is he testing Jesse? His little board game or what did you call it? A diorama?
Yeah, that's what it looked like to me. But it's basically a model, a diorama.
Yeah, trying to manipulate Jesse and everyone is. It's pretty much not working. Maybe God is being tested in the show by the people he created in his own image, and thus he is recreated in their image. This is something I got out of the San Diego Comic-Con. Like, they had an interview with, what was it, David Harlick?
Harlick. Mark
Harlick. Yeah. So the guy who plays God in Preacher stated, and he pretty much stated, it's like how God has, created man in his own representation, but in this format, it's now that man is dictating to God how they feel or how he is represented to them. So it seems to be like some sort of like whole clashing of, all right, I created man in my own image. Now man is creating me into what their perception is. So I started going into the rabbit hole because after I watched this episode, if you watch it on AMC Premiere, it's pretty funny. The last thing you'll see is the San Diego Comic-Con, the panel with Seth Rogen and the two actors as well as Mark Harlick. And they go on and on. But when Mark Harlick came on and brought that up, I just started, it's like, oh, wait, it started like getting in my head because I'm watching the show. Interesting.
I'm going to have to disagree with you on one point, though. I think at least for us, up to this point in the story, I don't think it's not working. I think it's everything is going exactly according to God's plan. Because I noted two things that make me think this is is number one, he puts Tulip's car next to his travel trailer in that model.
Very true.
And so we do know by the end of the episode that it was actually a setup just for him to, I don't know what he was planning to accomplish with all of them, but it was definitely a bring, because then he also has the plane is in his little diorama as well. So either he's making the diorama after these things have happened, or as I think he's making them before. I think he knows what's going to happen. And so I think his, it's a big, not to get, I don't want to get too super religious, but it's one of those things that you always question as a believer. Does God, his sovereignty, does it mean he knows everything? I think a friend of mine said it the best way, and I totally agree with him, is that God knows what's going to happen and he plans accordingly.
Even though he makes himself look like a crazy person in this show.
He is, but even though, but you go back to when she finds the postcard in the travel trailer, he's in there.
It was kind of like a
watching
plant,
her.
and that's what I thought, too.
Exactly. He's watching her. So it was all a setup. I think this is all going exactly according to his plan. And I could be proven wrong on that. And maybe by the end of the actual series, they'll kind of break out of his plan. But I think what we're supposed to take from this is that this is all going exactly the way he planned it, even to what all the Grail. I think there's probably a diorama in that travel trailer of what all the Grail people are doing.
Probably.
You know? So,
meaning that,
but yeah,
God is really sneaky.
yeah, exactly. So that brings us to my number 3.
Yes.
My number 3 is the negotiations that are going on between Jesus and Hitler. And there's one part of these negotiations where Hitler talks about deathbed conversions, and Jesus says, well, of course, if he truly repents, and then Hitler's describing himself when he goes, so you're saying a man could attempt genocide, could raid Danzig, and then if at the last minute he repents, he's okay. And Jesus is like, well, yeah, that's it. If it's a true repentance. And Hitler says, well, if you get that, then I'm taking back the homosexuals, which I thought was a pretty funny way to look at it. He's like, I'll take back the homosexuals then.
Oh my goodness.
But and of course, during these negotiations, we get that phone call from God to Herr Starr telling him to initiate phase 2, which we now know is that big old bomb being taken to Australia, and the guys doing it claiming to be Kiwis.
And they get called out on it, too.
Exactly.
That would bring me to my number 2, which would be... my number 2 would be Tulips finding God's little board game, or what Steve states, diorama, and seeing how he has been manipulating everybody, including Jesse. She sees clues as to what his game is pretty much about, but I didn't figure it out. All she got was that Jesse is going to meet God, and it's something that God put in place because he left those clues, like you said before.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to switch my number up here a little bit because I want to jump in on what you're saying with this, because there's a little bit of a confusion here, and at least to me it's a little confusing, is that she sees the postcard of the Lost Apostle. She sees the little Jesse and the little God standing next to each other, and I don't remember if there was a model of the Lost Apostle there as well. I think there might have been something sticking up that was representing that monument, and she figures out that, oh, that's where they're going. And then she goes to get Cass, and we discover that Tulip can fly a plane.
Yeah.
Apparently, this is like out of the blue, and it was one of those things that I just went, huh? And so I'm with you. Like I said, this is my number 2. I switched it up. This is my number 2 as well. Is that we have this plan forming where they're going to rescue Jesse, and they do it. Everything works. They take the plane, and she flies over, and I can only assume that they must have been able to see Jesse from the air, and so they see him in the Saint, and they come down, and Cassidy says something like, do you think he knows what's coming. And she's like, well, if he doesn't, it's going to be a real surprise, or it's going to be something. It's just, I didn't get, and this is where I wonder if we're going to have another episode where we get a flashback maybe to them kind of having some sort of plan or something maybe of this. But, you know, everybody is now here at the Lost Apostle, and they, you know, dip the plane down. Jesse runs to catch it, which, okay, I'll give it. Jesse's fast as a plane. And they get him in the plane. They put all the crop dusting stuff onto the Saint of Killers, and they get away. And the Saint doesn't try to shoot them with his planet shooting guns, which was a little strange to me. Maybe because because we know he doesn't want to kill Jesse. Maybe that's why he didn't shoot at the plane. But yeah, that whole thing, and then they get into the plane, and I just come back to that. How did Jesse know what the plan was when all he did was he heard a plane, you know? So yeah, I'm with you. This is one of those things that maybe they'll come back to it and explain it to us.
It's a good question, though. That's the whole thing. It's like, how did he know that this was going to happen?
Yeah.
He has no foresight. He's not clairvoyant in any way. He probably just saw a plane go,
right.
Oh, that's my easy ticket out. Maybe these guys will come down and get me.
Oh yeah, they're dusting the non-existent crops in this field. It just seemed very coincidental that he would know. And then he sees Cassidy, and so then of course the bomb goes off, and we get that ending of that's good. Go to your number one.
All right, well, my number one, that would be the ending scene on the flight with the pickup of Jesse, but it fails. What?
yeah. Ultimately, it fails.
Yeah, that was really intense, in my opinion. Jesse tells Cass to let him go with the voice, and he does, which leads Jesse to fall to his quote-unquote death from what we see from how the season started off from that opening scene, and now here we're seeing it at the end of this episode. Now, that's pretty much a huge cliffhanger right there, but obviously we know that Jesse's still alive because they keep giving us and feeding us these things with him with an eye patch and everything else, so we know he's not dead.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it when we get to the end of, after all of our other thought, we'll talk about the preview for next week as well, which may give us an indication of how Jesse's going to come back, I think. It does, yeah, I'm with you. That whole thing was just really, really strange, and I loved, though, I'm with you, I love the fact that Cass was willing to let his arm burn.
Yeah.
You know, to try and get Jesse into the plane, and then Jesse, like you said, he has to use the voice to get Cass to let him go.
Exactly.
And of course, like you said, we get that ending where we get him in the dirt, but we don't have Cassidy. So it's another kind of, the tension is kind of out of it, because like you said, we've seen images of Jesse with an eye patch, so we know he's going to come back to life. We've seen that there's some point where Tulip and Cassidy are in this hotel room together. Mm-hmm. We haven't seen that scene yet, so we know they're going to survive the explosion that apparently should have blown up the plane, I would think, that big of an explosion. Maybe the explosion wasn't too big. I don't know. There's a lot of things to be answered in the next 4 episodes, though, which brings us to my number one, which is pretty simple, and I think I kind of talked about it last episode, is that we find out for sure that Tulip has not read Jesse's letter. Everything that we've seen and heard from her is her imagining of what's in that letter. Mm-hmm. Yep. And so I found that really interesting, that even when Cassidy skims the letter, he says, no, there's nothing in there to tell us where he's going. But it was 2 pages. It was 2 pages, and he skims the whole thing, and then she doesn't even want to know. I was really... that was really interesting to me. So I wonder if we're going to get her reading that letter. We're going to find out actually what the contents of that letter are next week, because that was the last thing that, you know, as Jesse is being taken away. Now, he didn't use the voice, but he did say to Cass, make Tulip read the letter.
Yeah.
You know,
it was kind of like a suggestion, like, hey, make her read the letter. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wonder if that's one of those things that, you know, it would have been something. How could Cassidy, even if he had used the voice, how is Cassidy going to make her read the letter? Hold her eyes open and put the letter in front of her?
No.
It's
all about convincing, and I think that had to do with how Jesse knew that they were together and just how they all are together.
Exactly.
So
we've got a couple of quotes here, and I just have one that I thought was really funny, especially the third time I watched it, when the waitress comes up to Cassidy and she wants to give him a cuppa, and he's like, "You people in your cuppas, I don't want a cuppa," which is a little confusing because he's Scottish, and I went to Wales at least, and they say cuppa in Wales, they say cuppa in London, and so you would think you would think he's already been conditioned to accept the whole cuppa thing, but I just chuckle at that. You people in your cuppas.
I had one that is pretty funny. Cass to Jesse in the airplane. Hey, when you find God, you're going to have to explain the Big Lebowski.
Yeah. I love that. Make it, and even he's kind of tongue in cheek now at this point with it, because he kind of gives him a little wink and a nod, even when he says it. So I thought that was great. I agree with you. That's a good quote.
And then there was one other that I had, which I was on the floor laughing about this. I thought it was so funny. The waitress at the diner, when Cass asks for drugs or any cleaning chemicals, stating he's a drug addict. The delivery was so funny, it had me on the floor. Honestly, it's like, there might be some fire retardant out back. Now, mind you, what do we see in the back of the airplane when you see Cass? It says fire retardant in the back of it.
Yeah, he brought him with it. He brought it with him. I thought, and I totally agree with you. That actor, she did it perfectly, because it seems like he's trying to put her off balance when he says about the drugs, and she just kind of looks at him and goes, "There might be some flame retardant in that back," So, okay, you can go sniff that.
Yeah.
So we got some additional notes here, some things that we didn't get to in our top fives.
Yeah.
Let me do mine first, because my first one is really quick. It's just jazz. I don't get it. Jazz music. I don't get it. I don't get the attraction. I don't get it's discordant. It's just notes. I don't understand it. Do they actually write those songs, or are they just play it? Jazz music. Maybe it's just not for me.
It's free form. That's literally what jazz is. It's mostly free form and just jamming out.
Yeah. Okay.
Mine would be, my additional notes would be, it was pure daylight pretty much when Cass and Tulip were in the diner. So how did Cass get inside? Can an umbrella really protect him from the sunlight in the outback? That's all over the place.
Yeah, this is a problem. And I don't think the series itself has been very unclear about, inconsistent with his exposure and his aversion to sunlight. His he's allergic to, his allergy to sunlight, I guess is what you would call it. They've been very unclear about that, and I don't know if it's a thing where the older the vampire is, or if the exposure is limited, or what. But like, even when it just, I'm with you. It's completely, they're inconsistent about it, because he throws his son out the window and makes him stay out there, and that's enough. Hoover just barely, the Allfather knocks the umbrella hat off Hoover's head, and he basically bursts into flames and dies right there. Now, of course, that was direct sunlight, but still, I'm with you. The series itself has been a little inconsistent as to the effects that sunlight has on Cassidy. And, just the fact that when the very first time we see Cassidy, he jumps out of an airplane in full daylight. He lands on the ground. He's in a hole.
He's in half, isn't he? I thought he was in half at that time. I don't know.
I don't think so, because he was close enough. There was a cow, because he gets the blood from the cow, and that's apparently. And then I guess he covered himself up with dirt until the sun went down.
I guess so.
But he jumps out of that airplane, and so I think the whole series has been very inconsistent with the sunlight and vampirism. The other thing one thing I had was that we get that last shot there towards the end of Featherstone in her disguise. She's disguised as a man, and she's working at the Masada Coffee House. I thought that was interesting. What is she going to do?
Yeah. And my other would be God and the All-Father. When God shows the All-Father what he knows, what the All-Father has, what's been going on with him, the All-Father's deceit.
Yeah.
Then Six the Dingo on the All-Father. That was pretty much funny. I'm sorry. It's just like, oh, yeah. It's like, oh, no. He starts going through the actual, the proper terms of what a dingo is.
Yeah.
And it just sicks it on him.
Yeah.
It just tells you, don't cross God.
I thought that was hilarious. I'm right there with you. I laughed. I laughed every time when that dog attacked him because Hairstar is so sure that God is going to make him beautiful again and make him look whatever. And the dog attacks him. But then something interesting, and I don't know if we've ever heard it before, and maybe it was just a coincidence. But I guess we'll find out. But it really sounded like God used the voice because they did that echoing thing when he told Hairstar not to cross him, or Hairstar don't cross me again, or something like that. They did that same echoing thing that they do when Jesse uses the voice. So I found that really interesting.
Yeah.
That I wonder if we're going to have a dueling voices here at some point, because it would make sense that God would have that power as well. So,
and you would think Jesus would have it, but apparently he does not, and we were already shown that a couple of episodes ago.
Yeah, I think there's I don't think. Well, no, because he did say he can do some miracles, but he also said something about a lot of those are metaphor. So I'm not 100% sure. I'm now that as we start talking about this, and as I was saying earlier, I don't think that. I think he is Jesus. He is the 2,000-year-old Jesus.
Yeah, I think so too.
But it is. You would think he would have that power. At least he would have some form of that power. Maybe he just doesn't use it. Maybe he's just so laid back, and that's the whole
maybe
point.
he's so naive he doesn't know how to use it and know when to use it.
Possibly. I'm interested to see. I really think he's just so passive of a character.
No,
that
maybe he's just pouring a lot of, turning water into wine and just drinking it.
Exactly. So no feedback this week. I'm hoping we'll get some feedback from people in the coming weeks as we close out the series. But what do you think, Mark, as a whole, as the series is going? What do you think? And let's talk about the preview here as well, what you can remember of the preview.
Oh, I'm entertained every week. Come on, this show is nuts and funny. I just enjoy it as it is. Like I said before, I've never read the comic. I maybe read the first 2 issues at most, but from what I'm told, there is a big difference between the comic and the actual show. Mm-hmm. But the show is extremely entertaining, and Seth Rogen and the rest of the crew have been entertaining us and giving us really interesting episodes. And that's why it's spanned 4 seasons.
Yeah.
So, there's so many elements in it that I love. But we also get the warm feeling of friendship, as you spoke about before, Steve, with these characters. And I think that's what intrigues us to constantly come back.
Yeah, it's about the relationships. And at first, before I watched the preview, I kind of was wondering if God was going to bring Jesse back to life. Because remember, in the first episode, he talked about with Hairstar, about they want him to suffer. And I'm starting to think that those conversations with Hairstar were just him being deceitful to Hairstar. I think he's got a whole different plan. But if you did you watch the preview for next week?
I saw a glimpse of it. That's about it.
In the preview for next week, it appears that Jesse is going to die and he's going to go to heaven, and the angels are trying to install him as the new God. That's what the preview kind of indicates.
That's pretty cool.
To me, anyway. So I'm going to be interested to see. Now, of course, we know the previews lie, because we thought that Tulip and Jesus were going to rob a bank because of one of the previous previews, and that didn't happen. So anything can happen. It might be a dream of Jesse's. Who knows? But I definitely am excited for these last 4 episodes, and I hope we get a good conclusion to the series. And part of me wonders if Seth Rogen is going to show up, since he did show up in an episode of The Boys.
Yeah, definitely.
You got some comic talk.
That I do. Well, everybody, Spawn issue number 300 hit comic shops this week. Yes, yesterday, Wednesday, we're recording this on Thursday the 5th. So Todd McFarlane came back to work on it. So there are multiple amounts of variants out there. Todd has actually done some work inside it as far as drawing. I hope everyone out there got their version of Spawn issue number 300. So,
Nice.
So I got mine. I got a sketch variant that Todd actually drew. But, keep in mind, everybody, they're not going to go up in value extremely because they've issued out so many. So get it for the fact that you like the artwork on the actual cover and, read the story if you can.
Yeah, it takes about 40 or 50 years, really, for comic books to have any kind of uptick in value, really.
Not necessarily.
Well, I mean, it depends on the comic book, but
Yeah.
for the most part, comic books now that were like from the 60s and the 70s are, if they're in good condition. The comic books from the 80s haven't quite yet caught up to that yet.
Or
But,
if you'd gone to the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia where they actually had the Marvel exhibit where Steve actually went to and I went to, but they had the original Marvel comic out there. And somebody I was looking at was standing there and he had his phone out and they did a CGC on it. So they had the barcode, so the guy looked it up and he goes, dude, that's $3.2 million right there under all that acrylic.
Well, yeah, I'm not, but even that was like a 70-year-old or a 60.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. They've got to get, it's decades. It's going to be your grandchildren, people that are going to make money off your comics.
Exactly. But, you go out there and you look for a first pressing of the last Walking Dead issue, or, no, I can't say episode, but issue that Robert Kirkman put out. It's very hard to come by because it was in limited press.
Right.
So now you're starting to see that online for $150 per. So
Yeah, but 5 to 10, 20 years from now, they might still be up there. It just depends. Like I said, it depends on the comic, and there's a lot of variations. Yeah, go ahead.
D23 has given us a lot of information on Marvel projects. So She-Hulk is coming to Disney Plus. I'm so happy for this because I love She-Hulk, as well as Steve. You're gonna love it.
Moon Knight. Yeah, I'm excited for Moon Knight. I like that character, and the comics haven't been running here in a while, so
yeah. So we have Moon Knight, and there's so much more. I suggest to everybody that's out there that's listening, go and watch all the D23 YouTube videos that are out there. There's so much in there. There's so much information, not just on the Marvel stuff, but the Mandalorian is coming out. They have the trailer for that. They had the trailer for the next Star Wars movie. A lot of cool things that are going on with the Disney parks. So I would just recommend, if you had a day, just to sit and watch YouTube, look at the D23 stuff that they have, and just enjoy it. So we have a couple of suggestions, and my suggestion is there is a podcast out there. I don't believe it's part of the Next Level Podcast Network, but Craig is out there, and he is... So you want to listen to Comic Book Gurus, if possible. Craig actually went to, like I stated before, the Franklin Institute where they had the Marvel exhibit. He has a video online. If you go to Comic Book Gurus on Facebook, you'll find it. If you're in the Philadelphia area, they're on 93.3 WMMR. And he's a good friend of the podcast for the Next Level. and he's a good friend of Ben Beck. I talked to Craig a couple of times. He's a really nice guy, loves his comics. He's always out there every Wednesday getting his comics, and he did a great tour on YouTube and on Facebook. If you could go to that particular page, and you could see the whole Franklin Institute. It's amazing. If it comes to your town, I suggest you go to it, but also give them a listen because they have great insights about comic books and what's going on currently and in the past.
Very good, very good. So Comic Book Gurus is the name of that one, huh?
Correct.
Okay. I want to recommend the TV Podcast Industries podcast about The Boys. They will be wrapping up their coverage of The Boys next week. I believe next Wednesday they'll be covering episode 8. I've already sent them in feedback for that episode, so you should hear my voice on their podcast next week. I just got mine in for episode 7 with that dropped this week, so I'm excited to hear. These are great guys that Mark and I know, and so just give them a listen, give them a subscribe. TV Podcast Industries.
Yeah, they're amazing. I love Derek. So, how could people send us feedback?
Well, we can be heard on Spotify, Google Play, Apple iTunes, or whatever podcast player of choice that you use. If there's a rating or a review section available, give us some 5 stars. Heck, don't give us low stars. I'm just going to always ask for 5 stars. 5-star reviews, great reviews. If you don't like us, you can say that. Still give us a 5-star review. Just say you don't like it. I don't care. No, listen to us. Send us some feedback, man. Check out our new website. It's www.panels2pixelspodcast.com. We got that whole alliteration thing going. Panels2pixelspodcast.com. You can also submit your theories and feedback to our Facebook page, which is at facebook.com/panels2pixels, or you can email us at panels2pixels1@gmail.com. That's panels2pixels1. The TO is right there in the middle spelled out. The 1 is the number 1 at gmail.com. And we also have a brand new voicemail line where you can call us at, and I believe Mark has that number.
Yes, that will be 845-350-2095. And there will be a nice little greeting, and just leave us some feedback. That's all we ask, and we will actually play it on the podcast, just like Steve does and other podcasts, because you could hear his voice everywhere else. And where else can they hear us, Steve? Come on.
Well, you can hear my good friend Mark, as he is the co-host on the Walking Dead Talk Through podcast with Brian Malosh on Talk Through Media. Yep, they have their own podcast network. It's called Talk Through Media. You can find them at talkthroughmedia.com, and there's going to be some great podcasts coming up on there. You'll find the Star Trek Discovery podcast there already. The Picard podcast, when it comes out, will be there. And of course, you can always hear us on all of the Next Level Podcast Network shows. And there's a link there to Talk Through Media. All of it. We are out there, people. Social media us up. Talk to us. Send us some feedback. Next Level Podcast Network, Talk Through Media, Podcastica, whichever, however you want to contact us. We love it.
Yeah, and you could actually hear Steve right here, of course, but he also submits a lot of feedback to various other podcasts, and he looks forward to talking about great TV often, all the time. He loves going on Podcastica. He does, what was Derek's podcast?
TV Podcast Industries. They cover, right now they're covering superhero shows. They're covering The Boys. They're covering Pennyworth, which I haven't watched yet. But also, you can hear me. I regularly send feedback into the We Have to Go Back Lost Revisited podcast on Podcastica and this very own network, Next Level Podcast. Yep. I also send regular feedback to Strange Indeed. That is a podcast on Podcastica Network. They just started covering the TV show Carnival Row on Amazon Prime, and I sent them in a voicemail for the first episode of that as well.
Awesome. So you could hear us in various formats, not just here, but we always recommend you listen to us here. And please keep in mind, we love our friends, but we want to love you even more just by sending in feedback, and we can't express that anymore. Please send us any information, any thoughts, anything, and I think next week we'll probably have a little bit more. So, with that, thanks everyone for listening. I'm Mark.
And I'm Steve.
And this was Panels to Pixels, everyone. Good night.
Good night.